What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. We're back for another press conference reaction. Everton versus Manchester United Super Sunday at Goodison Park. The main event on Sunday. Everton versus United. Premier League football's back. Premier League football's back, which means the press conferences are back. Erik ten Hag has been talking to the assembled media at Carrington ahead of this weekend's Premier League return. Thank God. Thank the heavens above that international football is over for, I think it's like 4 months, the last international break for 4 months. So now we're back with the questions, the answers, and all the build-up to this weekend's Premier League clash. Now, quite a lot actually went down in this press conference. As I sometimes say, the first part of the press conference can be a bit, and then actually the real juicy part of it, the real sort of meaty element of it, the big questions, the big responses, the big news actually comes out later on in the evening. And as always, I will be live tonight, 10:45-ish, for the embargoed part of the press conference, as well as any other news that comes out, because before Premier League weekend, around sort of 10:30 on a Friday, you tend to get some big stories come out. So we'll be live later on this evening for that. But we did get quite a lot of news when it came to today's press conference. We got a bit about Luke Shaw. He's available. Andre Onana, he's good. Rasmus Højlund, touch and go. Johnny Evans, not available. But maybe the biggest part that came out in the press conference today, or the first part of the press conference rather today, was Erik ten Hag denying any reports of a rift between himself and Raphael Varane, suggesting that actually, you know what? Nope, they're just rumours. I don't know what you're talking about. Whether or not he's telling the truth, I'll leave that up for you to decide, because you never know what to believe. But be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know how you think the press conference went, if you saw it. Let me know your reactions to the quotes as we're going through them. Let me know your thoughts and just how you're feeling. How you're feeling ahead of the game on Sunday. Are you nervous? Are you apprehensive? Or are you just glad that football's back and normality, I guess, is being resumed and we can watch Manchester United do something, whether that's winning, drawing, losing. You never know with Manchester United, certainly. So there you go. Prod by Palmeiras, one of our members, he's got the Warsaw emoji. Yes, Warsaw's in the chat. Warsaw's in the chat. You know what to do. And what's fun, actually, I say Warsaw's in the chat. You can see Warsaw to the right of me there with the latest episode of UV Raw. Episode 28 available now. Dropped this week, exclusive for members as well. That's actually... it's like an over 40-minute episode with Flex, Marcel, and others for the game towards the end of last season, which was Man United versus Chelsea at Old Trafford. So you get to see, just for the UV Raws, there's a lot of Marcel madness going on in UV Raws as well. Big up Rich is in the chat as well, says proper football is back. And Erik ten Hag and Raphael Varane are best buddies. Yes, Rich is buying in. Says, no, I'm not believing any of the rumours. And Erik ten Hag and Raphael Varane are good. Let's get into the press conference, though. Let's get into the questions. Let's get into the answers. That's what you're all here for. So we start off with an injury update. Of course, Manchester United and injuries. Synonymous this season. How many have we had? Gosh, so many. So I have a lot of teams, in fairness, but it just feels like whenever we get players back, players go out with their respective injuries. So there was an injury update first when it came to Andre Onana and Rasmus Højlund. Erik ten Hag said, quote, Andre is okay. He stepped in training today. He's good. Rasmus still is a close finish. He's training. He finished outside, making very good steps, and we have to wait until tomorrow, and we will make a final decision. He was also then asked about Luke Shaw, and then Ten Hag said, quote, Luke Shaw will be available for Sunday. He will be in the squad. So this is kind of what Flex and myself touched on this morning with the morning view. I think when it comes to Luke Shaw, it was more the interview that he did. It was either with the Premier League or with beIN Sports. And he said that Luke Shaw had actually been training for 2 weeks with the team. So once I heard that, I went, well, actually, then Luke Shaw, I'd almost be surprised if he doesn't start, frankly, on Sunday, knowing that he's actually been, he's been training rather for the last couple of weeks. I do find it quite, I still think there is a debate, a longer term debate about what position he's going to play. I still think longer term he might end up being a left centre-back whilst Lisandro Martinez is out. I think that's a real possibility. My gut tells me Sunday, and you never know, depends what you've eaten the night before when it comes to the old guts, yeah, but gut health's important too. Have a Yakult or something like that, yeah, good bacteria, or have some, what are those tablets called? You can have these like tablets. I'm going off onto a tangent. Stay focused, Owen. I think with Luke Shaw, because he's just coming back, I think he might start as a left back and then he can be taken off after like 65, 70 minutes, something like that, hopefully with a positive result in the bag for Manchester United at that point anyway, and then you bring on a Sergio Reguilon or someone like that. So I'm leaning towards Luke Shaw starting at left back, but I do think sort of longer term in this period where Martinez, which we know is on the road to recovery, he was at Carrington this week, he was beginning the early stages of his individual training as he ramps up his return from his foot injury, so hopefully he's going to be back, New Year? Start of the new year? Maybe that's a bit optimistic, maybe late January, something like that. But so between now and then, I think we might see quite a bit more of Luke Shaw at left centre back. But as far as this weekend, I kind of think he'd probably be playing left back, which leads us into the centre back discussion, which we'll get to a bit later on. Andre Onana being fit and available was good news, though. There was a bit of concern, wasn't there? And people were already starting to watch the Bayern Deer comps, weren't they? They were watching those, and people were discussing how he'd been playing for Turkey. By all accounts, he'd played quite well for Turkey in the international break. And actually, I saw journalists reporting that Manchester United were very happy with the number 2, with Onana reportedly, and I think this was according to another journalist, saying that Bayern Deer was one of the best number 2s that Andre Onana ever worked with. And people were getting quite excited. Oh, what's going on with Bayern Deer? But Onana's available. But that's not to say that Bayern Deer isn't going to get his chance, because when AFCON comes around in January, that's going to be his moment, one would think. Although I did see something today that was saying that Galatasaray or someone was interested in buying Bayern Deer. And I thought he hasn't even played yet for Man United. He only joined a couple of months ago. Well, Galatasaray are interested. I don't know how real that thing actually was. So that's positive about the team news there. As far as Højlund, I mean, Ten Hag saying it's touch and go. I lean to more that he probably, at a push, he might be on the bench, maybe. But considering the games to come up, Galatasaray away, and also Højlund's form within the Champions League, that's really important too. His form in the Champions League has been very, very good. Was it 5 Champions League goals this season? I think he's top goal scorer in the competition, or near enough there at the top of that list. So with that being said, I think Ten Hag would really want him to be available for midweek, and then we're still going to need him a lot more going forward as we really hit quite a lot of important games. So he's not worth the risk, I don't think, Sunday. So if he's available for the bench, he's available for the bench. But I think we need to be careful and wary when it comes to that one, particularly with the injury he had. I think it was a hamstring, wasn't it? So you don't want to rush anything like that. So that's the latest when it comes to the injury front as well. What's the chat saying? Harold, one of our members, says, bit nervous, excited when it comes to football returning. Austin Baker says, drop a like. Indeed, if you haven't already, click the like button. And Rich says, multibiotics bioculture tablets. Take one with breakfast and one before bed. Dr. Rich prescription. Well, Rich is not a medical professional. Let's just get that out the way first before we get any, just avoid any liability or anything like that. I think that's what I have. I have those things that are like probiotics. That's what it is. Probiotic tablets. Yeah. Get good bacteria in your gut. Gut health's very important. It can make a big difference. A big, big difference. I don't know if the ones I have are with one with breakfast and before bed. I think I just have them in the day. Just one or two. But also there's like, you have to build them up. You don't take your usual amounts immediately as well. Again, not medical professionals. I don't think I should be giving out that kind of advice on a stream. It feels like litigation. It's probably around the corner there. But, hit up Rich. Apparently he knows about all that kind of stuff. Next question was about the form in the Premier League for Manchester United. Of course, the most informed team in the Prem. Enjoy it. This is what I was saying to people, over the international break and after the game against Fulham. Enjoy that. Because that stat's not going to probably be around for a while. Let's face it. Other teams are going to catch up. We're going to lose games at some point. I don't know how long we're going to last as the most informed team in the Premier League. So enjoy it while you've got it. Now, that was pointed out to Ten Hag, best form in the Prem. So does that mean the headlines are not what they seem? But the real question is, do you feel you've turned the corner? That's the question. Do you feel you've turned the corner? And Ten Hag said, quote, definitely we have seen a turning point. We have seen how we deal with certain situations, that we build on a certain foundation, and now we have to build on. We go into a massive month. We are looking really forward and confident in the Premier League. Everyone is winning from everyone. There are no easy games for no one. Every team will drop points. But the last 5 games, we won 4, and that gives us confidence in the next games. And I know that maybe I'm repeating the same point here. And I know that you can probably say, oh, and you're waffling, rambling. Toxic positivity, that's the new one. Josh, if you're watching, that's a shirt for whenever one day UV merch arrives. Toxic positivity. Get that on a shirt. You know, it's the same as talent ID. Talent ID, cross that one off. No longer. That's not the buzzword anymore. Toxic positivity. That's new. And you're toxic positive. Okay? How dare you say anything good? We won 4 out of 5. Just shut up. We're rubbish. We're terrible. Well, actually, maybe it's not that bad. Rasmus Højlund scored a lot of goals in the Champions League, but we're still not good enough. Damn it. You know? The season's not over yet. It's only November. You know, Spurs have won the league, haven't they? Arsenal, they won the league this time last year as well. You've been toxic positivity. Toxic positive. How dare you? Toxic positivity. You know, maybe it should be like that toxic waste sweets. Instead of toxic waste, toxic positivity. With like the nuclear logos all around it. You're toxic positive. Avoid social distance. Because you're toxic positive. That's what you are. Talent ID. I'll be back in January. Your talent ID is shit. You're toxic positive. So you're saying. Boom. Another one. Write it down. It is a massive month for Man United in the Premier League. But it's what I've been saying recently. Like, you can only genuinely beat who's front of you, and you build momentum by winning games. Like, you're not terrible. Like, we've been poor for months. Honestly. We've been terrible for, again, months. When have we last played well? People point to it. Like Carabao Cup final, Barcelona, around that period of time. So it's not totally rational to assume that just one day, we're going to be brilliant. That's what we're going to be. We're going to be brilliant. No, like, again, you look at the recent form in the Premier League. You can look at the performances. Performances haven't been great, but you look at results in the Premier League, 4 out of 5. That is something to build on. It is. And when you say that, that's when people will get like, oh no, but the performances aren't great. But if you're still, as Ten Hag has said in these press conferences time and time again, if you're not playing well, which we're not, and we have to play better, because when we do play big teams, like when we play City or like when we played Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, you'll lose. And that wasn't even Newcastle's best team. But in these big upcoming games, if you play like that, you'll probably lose. But even when you're not playing well, you've got to win. And that's what we have done recently. But, you know, eventually the performances have to line up. And we know that. But, I mean, if 4 wins out of 5 isn't anything to build on, then I don't know what is. I mean, realistically, that is something to build upon, is it not? But toxic positivity, that's what it is. Toxic positivity, that's what it is. You're toxic positive. We won 4 out of 5. Shut up, toxic positivity, man. So there you go. Mike says, Owen, what you're describing isn't toxic positivity. It's negative. It's negativity. Get a grip, man. Or them being negative to me, or me saying, wait a minute, what, saying that if this is what I don't understand with all of this. This is and legitimately, I do not mean this facetiously. If someone can explain this to me without sounding insane, then I don't have a problem with it. But I don't understand how you can go, we're not playing very well at the moment, but I tell you what, 4 wins out of 5, that's something to build upon. And then they go, you're being toxic positive. That's what it is. You're being toxic positive. You go, what? What? Like, as I've said so often recently, it's not black and white. It's what it is. It's like there are shades of grey. You know, there are shades of grey involved in all of this. You can play badly and win games. You can play badly and win competitions. Not so much the Premier League, you need consistency. But I don't understand how saying, you know, your form's been decent or good is being is bad. I don't understand that as well. You know, I get it if you're losing matches. Like, don't get me wrong. That's when I would say, wow, I can understand that point of view. If you've lost 4 out of 5 as Man United, and then you say, yeah, but we're playing well. That's even worse, isn't it? If we lost 4 out of 5, and you go, yeah, but we're playing all right. People go, come on, man. It's a results business. That's what it is. It's a results business. You know, but when you're saying 4 out of 5, toxic positivity. New buzzword. That is the new one. I hate these toxic positivity fans. That's what it is. You know, I don't understand that one. And don't get me wrong, if you go on to social media, that's why I honestly have to take a step back. You know, I think the people that will, you know, say that there's nothing wrong at Manchester United at the moment, that's when you go, well, come on, that is ridiculous. That is burying your head in the sand. But you know, to focus on some positives at the moment, I would suggest that maybe it's not as bad as, let's say, the media make it out to be. If you listen to the media at the moment, you'd think Manchester United were bottom of the league, hadn't won a game all season, and hadn't scored a goal all season, if you listen to some of the media's responses. And the double standard on certain reporting around certain issues around Manchester United is insane. When same thing happens at other club and you just won't hear about it. you will not at all. It's like scaremongering, and it feeds into it as well. These journalists and media outlets, they aren't stupid. They take the pulse of what they see on social media or they see on Twitter or whatever, and they see these certain buzzwords and phrases and all that kind of stuff. I mean, look at the Raphael Varane issue, and which we'll get to later on. A week ago, you've got one outlet, and they're both, you know, credible reporters. Some could say more credible than others, but okay. You know, you've got one outlet going, Varane totally gets it. He's not happy that he's on the bench, but he understands tactical reasons, not got a problem. Today, it's the relationship is merely beyond repair. You know, it's completely broken. Wait a minute. A lot happened in 7 days, sir. What? And then I think then people latch on to, you know, whatever mood they're in. If they're feeling particularly negative about the manager or United in general, then they'll lean more into, that one feels right to me. I like that one. Erik ten Hag is falling out of players. See, another one. There's a lot of talk today. Erik ten Hag's falling out of all of these players. But if the other one's true, then he hasn't fallen out with Raphael Varane, and it is just a tactical issue. Or not even tactical. It's more just a case of Varane was playing this season. He got injured and missed 3 games. And then played another game, I think got injured again or was ill, missed the game. The guy that came in played well, and Ten Hag said, I'll stick with that a little bit. You know, it's there's a lot to decipher when it comes to the media as well. A lot to decipher. Anyway, I've veered off again when it comes to the press conference. As he mentions, it's a massive month for all of the Premier League games, and it gives us confidence for the next few games. It has to. Certainly it has to. The next question was about the atmosphere at Goodison Park on Sunday. Of course, it's going to be very intense, very heated. Obviously, Everton deducted 10 points. Erik ten Hag was also banned from the touchline for 3 yellow cards this season. And Ten Hag was asked, how difficult is that going to make it? And he said, quote, it's always about us. I can see the opposition. I can see they are mad. Finally, it's about us. If they are mad, that's their fuel. We have to match those standards. If we match those standards, we have a very good chance to win the game. I don't know the details about the points deduction. I don't have an opinion. I can imagine Everton fans are very mad. We can do nothing about it. We have to match their standards, which is pretty by the by, isn't it? It's pretty obvious stuff, pretty paint by numbers response, which is what you would expect. But it's still true, realistically. I mean, you would probably think the way it would go on Sunday is that the opening 10-15 minutes in that game is going to be really critical, isn't it? It's going to be really, really important because it's sort of 2 outcomes, really, isn't it? There's either one, they're going to be flying out the blocks, the atmosphere is going to be intense, so you would say, as an away team, take the sting out of the game by 1, keeping the ball or get an early goal. Just, again, take everything out of the game, take the wind out of the fans and the atmosphere and again, manage the game properly. Or if they've got a lot of the ball and they're, you know, absolutely putting balls in the box and taking shots and getting opportunities, sometimes if you're not playing particularly well, you are a bit fragile, like in the case of United, just sort of get through. Just get through the first 15, 20 minutes, wait for the crowd to quiet down, because they will, because you know what it's like if you've ever been to a game or if you've ever watched a game on TV. You know, first 15 minutes or the moment the whistle goes for kickoff, everyone's going crazy, they've just played the music before, and everyone's up for it, and they'll have had their protest, they'll have their signs up in the air, and they've been stewing on this for whenever the decision came in. What was it, this week? So the atmosphere is going to be right up there, and that's when you get into being a good team, manages that occasion, manages that atmosphere, and like I said, either takes the sting out of the game early, or if you can't do that, if you can't get a grip on the game, you just stay in it. you just stay in it as much as you can, and then try and grow into the game from that point of view as well. And as Ten Hag said, you've got to match that intensity. I mean, not to the extent of that you get carried away. You know, if Everton are flying in tackles, that's when, and this was a question that was asked later on, you know, manage and maintain your discipline too. Don't necessarily fly into tackles or anything like that, because sometimes you don't want to, and this is when you have to just talk about managing the games. Sometimes you don't want to sort of rile up the crowd. Sometimes you don't want to rile up the players. If you fly into a tackle or something like that, that can almost have the adverse effect, can't it, of getting the crowd all fired up. You just want to manage it. Sometimes it's just a case of keep the ball. Just keep the ball. If United do start well, get that early goal, make it count, which United haven't done for the longest time. And like I said, just manage that atmosphere. That's all we can do, and we have to match their standards. So certainly, Erik ten Hag is right about that one. What else are the chat saying at the moment? Rich says these toxic negativity fans finding an issue in everything, with the eyeballs emoji as well. Austin Baker says, didn't he say this past pre-season he wanted to retire at his home club during that presser? I don't recall what that one is, so I'm not sure. What else are people saying? Arteta's son, unfortunate, says, what do you believe, Owen? Is there an issue or is everything rosy? Shades of grey, my friend. Shades of grey. What you mean between Raphael Varane and Erik ten Hag personally? I think, and I mentioned this morning with Raphael Varane, this is my kind of perception on it. Is he annoyed that he's been dropped in recent big matches, Manchester Derby, for Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire? I'm sure he is. I mean, he's got, any football player worth their salt has a bit of an ego, a bit of a chip on their shoulder. Certainly with the things that he's achieved. He's won Champions Leagues, he's won La Liga titles, he's won World Cups. He's got a huge pedigree and huge quality, and he's a fantastic defender. So I'm sure that hurts, and to be told that it's a tactical situation, that probably hurts as well. But I would hope as well that he hasn't taken it completely personally and realises that sometimes it is football. Sometimes as well, and this is the thing too, we don't know the real ins and outs of the conversation. If Erik ten Hag has said to Raphael Varane, you know, I've dropped you out, it's tactical, you were injured, Harry Maguire's come back in, I feel like I can rely on him a little bit more recently because you've had a few injuries, that might be a really touchy issue for Raphael Varane, right? That might be a really touchy issue for him. There's nothing wrong with my fitness. I don't get injured all the time. But his fitness record is spotty, to say the least. And I mentioned this on the Morning View, that we had these conversations last season about which games you have to play Varane in, because he can't play all of them, right? You can't. He can't. If we've got, like Ten Hag said, we've got 3 games in the space of however many days. It's like 7 days. We've got 3 games. And if Raphael Varane was starting every single game at the moment, or been playing recently, he wouldn't play all 3 of those games in that short period of time, because he can't. So that in itself is a problem. If you're trying to plan for the future and you want continuity and consistency, and you do have a player there that you know, if we play him there, he's going to get injured, that's a bit of a problem. And in a time in which we've had a lot of injuries and a back four that's constantly changing, you don't want to make as many changes as you have to, if you can avoid it. So I don't necessarily think there's been a fallout per se. I think there might be a bit of a difference of opinion in that Ten Hag's like, I just need someone that's going to be available all the time at the moment because I'm trying to build consistency. And Varane's probably a bit like, you know, well, I feel like I'm better than these players, so I should be playing. Respect the manager's decision. But if there's an opportunity to come up to leave, like to a Bayern Munich, then I'll probably take that. So I don't know if it's like this big, it's beyond repair, it's a big fallout. Not every disagreement is, particularly in business, which is this is work, you know, particularly at this thing, is a massive fallout. You can have a difference of opinion and maybe someone isn't really feeling you, but it's not really personal, and it doesn't have to always be, we're not on speaking terms or all this kind of stuff. I think that, and this is why I go say shades of grey. It's not to put down Raphael Varane's ability at all. No doubt, I'm not putting him down. And I saw someone in the comments this morning say, but if he goes to Bayern Munich and he does really well, then you'll be sorry. If he goes to Bayern Munich, he will do really well, because he doesn't have to play 3 games in 7 days. because they can take him out of the starting lineup and not have to worry about a game in the Bundesliga, because they'll win the game in the Bundesliga. They've got adequate replacements and adequate backup. If it's not Varane, then it can be Kim Min-jae, then it can be De Ligt, I think he's injured, but it can be Upamecano. We take any of those centre-backs at Man United, and they'd be starting pretty much most weeks for us. And the games of the Bundesliga, they're going to probably win anyway. They're going to win the league anyway. So they can single out a game in Europe, although I think he's played in the Champions League, so I'm not sure how that would work. Does it change if it's the group stage into a knockout stage? I can't remember the rules when it comes to that. But nevertheless, I think that might benefit him, where he doesn't have to play all the time, and they can manage his workload a bit more effectively. I think it's just a case of Ten Hag really wanting continuity and consistency with his team selection, and it's not as if the people that have come in haven't done terribly. Maguire, whether you like him or not, has done good. I don't think is a long-term answer. We need new centre-backs. We wanted Maguire gone in the summer. He stayed. And I think long-term, most people would have said, at the end of this coming season, Varane to Saudi or wherever, that's probably not the worst thing in the world in terms of long-term planning. It's just happened that it's kind of gone in a reverse order or anything like that, I think. So I don't really look at it as a giant fallout or anything like that. But we'll get to that. As I mentioned, that was a question that was asked later on. So next question was about the test of temperament and physicality, as we just spoke about. The question was asked, how difficult is it to prepare for that? And Ten Hag said, quote, "We go in a week very condensed. We play 3 games in 6 days. As a squad, we have to deal with that." And then the follow-up to that was, do you speak with them about that? Which, again, is a bizarre question. No, I don't talk to them at all. Of course he speaks to him about that. So that is quite literally his job, is to prepare the team as best as he can and think several games ahead. So of course he's going to speak to his team about that. And Ten Hag said, of course, we have a plan, a strategy for it. We make the players aware and they have to take responsibility for it. But especially it's about cooperation. So it's a bit of a strange follow-up there, certainly. Next question was about Luke Shaw's return. Ten Hag was asked how significant the England international's return is to the side. And Ten Hag said, quote, "You can mention many things, physical, technical ability, it's clear. Long time this season, we didn't have a left fullback. Very happy he's back. He will help us be more stable." And we spoke quite a bit about Luke Shaw this week, knowing that he was back in training and it's going to be available for Sunday. Obviously, Luke Shaw, when you've got your best players available, you're going to play better. It's not even really rocket science when it comes to that. And Luke Shaw is our best left back at the club. Now, again, long term, when you're thinking really, really far in the future, well, not even that far, just longer term, if you want to compete, let's say, for a Premier League title over the next, in about 3 years' time, 4 years' time, is Luke Shaw maybe a part of that? We could do better. And has he been, he's been at United nearly a decade. Has it been near a decade of consistency? No. Has he had good seasons? Yes. Has he had good performances? Yes. Is his injury record spotty? Yes, very much so. He's had some big injuries during his time at Manchester United. And just when it feels like certainly he has a good season or he's starting to build, he breaks down or something happens. But they're kind of more longer term, more pressing things, aren't they? Luke Shaw coming back is going to be really, really important. I think, again, it depends where he plays. That's what I think is really interesting. I think, like I said, Sunday, he'll probably play left back. But I think in that period of time between whenever Martinez comes back, I really do think we're seeing quite a bit of left centre-back. To have a natural left footer there is clearly what Eric Ten Hag likes. He said it a few press conferences ago, didn't he? When he was talking about Maguire and Varane and people playing on the right side versus the left side. And he said that's why we bought Martinez. But he also then singled out Luke Shaw as someone that can play there. And he did that job very effectively last season, to the point that when Martinez was out, it wasn't Maguire or Lindelof who came back in, maybe more so Lindelof who can play on the left. It was Shaw, because he liked Luke Shaw, because Luke Shaw did well in big games in that position. So I think that maybe once Malacia comes back, and he shouldn't be too far away from coming back. He is back on the grass now at this point. But I do think in maybe more of the games coming forward, I do think we'll see more of Shaw at left back, because he's maybe closer to Alessandro Martinez in terms of his ability to build out from the back, take the ball from Andre Onana and play out, as opposed to sort of kind of trying to shoehorn right-footed centre-backs in that position that can kind of do both, a bit like Lindelof or Evans or whoever that may be. So I do think we'll see a lot more of Luke Shaw at left centre-back, but not this weekend. But I do think that's going to happen quite a bit, to be honest with you. And I'm not against it. Like, legitimately, I'm really not against that at all. I think that's going to be... I think that will make a big difference too. And he is a quality player. No doubt about that at all. Next bit was about, once again, maintaining discipline against Everton and the atmosphere at Goodison Park. Ten Hag said we have to step forward. We have made a step forward with that recently. We make steps there. We have good form, good away form. I think he means literally recent away form, because he's probably thinking about the game against Fulham. What's our last few away games in the Premier League? Is it Burnley, Sheffield United and Fulham? Are they our most recent away games in the Premier League, or am I missing out on any as well? You can let me know if I'm right with that. Because if that is the case, then yes, our recent away form is good in the Prem. You would argue over the last 18 months, it's not necessarily been those teams that we've struggled with, though, away from home. It's been anyone in the top half, realistically. But he says we know what we have to do to go on and win games as well. Next was about Johnny Evans. Of course, he got injured against Copenhagen just before the international break. When asked about how he's getting on, Ten Hag said, quote, "To Johnny, he's on the way back. He's not ready for Everton, but he will not take long." And this is then really the biggest part of the press conference, is these disagreements, or reported, shall we say, rumoured disagreements with Raphael Varane. Eric Ten Hag was asked about that, and Ten Hag said, quote, "I don't know what you're talking about. There is internal competition when you have to decide on two players who are brilliant, Harry Maguire and Raphael Varane. You have to make a decision." So he stressed the importance of internal competition. That's important at big clubs. He didn't say who are brilliant. He said who do brilliant. Again, the transcription's important. Words matter. But he said, "I don't know what you're talking about, rumours." I think Eric Ten Hag absolutely knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? Eric Ten Hag certainly knows, exactly going, I don't know what you're talking about. I think he exactly knows what you're talking about. Of course he knows about the rumours regarding him and Raphael Varane. He's been asked about it a couple of times, and he's been asked several times about the Varane starting on the bench and not being selected. So, of course, he knows what you're talking about there. I think maybe in the case of him having a fallout, like I said, I lean into, and ultimately it's up to you what you believe. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of reports out there that say a variety of different things. To use the analogy that we've used a million times here, it is like panning for gold, sieving for gold, whatever you want to call it, whereby you scoop up a load of dirt, and you have to shake away all of the dirt, all of the rocks, all of just the nonsense, the filler, and you get a little bit of gold just there. You get a tiny, tiny bit of truth. And that's sometimes with reports and stories in the media. There's an element of truth in there. Raphael Varane's not happy. Yeah, and you go, okay, why isn't he happy? It could maybe a fallout. Maybe the relationship's completely severed between the two. They're not talking anymore. Eric Ten Hag's a total authoritarian. Boom, 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 boom. Tactical, not tactical. Illness, injury, shake it all away. And in reality, it's just, he's not happy. But why should he be happy? He's not playing games. I don't begrudge Raphael Varane for not being happy. Any professional footballer, any elite sportsman, when they're not doing what they're meant to be doing, i.e. playing, of course they're not going to be happy about that. And that's kind of the reaction you hope for, really, isn't it? Now, again, whether he agrees with the manager's decision or rationale behind the decision or not is somewhat irrelevant, really, because it's not the player's decision to make, is it? You can have your own feelings on it, but whilst you play for United, you respect the manager's decision and you move on. If you want to leave, that's your prerogative. If an offer comes in, then again, that's up to you. That's why, and I don't want to touch too much on the Jadon Sancho situation, but that's why that whole situation for me was just kind of a case of, get over it and move on. And if you want to leave when the time's right, you leave. You be as professional as you possibly can, which I think is a case. I think Raphael Varane is a good example. I think Raphael Varane is a good example with this, in that, he might not be happy with the situation or how it's going at the moment, but he's remained professional. Have we seen Raphael Varane speak out in public negatively against the manager or the club or anything like that? No. Have we seen when Raphael Varane's been brought on, sometimes for not a huge amount of time in the match, have we seen him refuse to come on, refuse to play? No, nothing like that. He's remained as professional as he possibly can, which again, I think is a credit to him. So we'll see what happens when it comes to Raphael Varane. You never know. Like, he might come in for one of the games, play brilliantly well, with maybe Luke Shaw at left centre-back, and then Maguire's out to the side. I mean, plenty of players over the last 18 months we thought were on their way out, not going to play, and then suddenly they're very, very important to us, or they play a run of matches. So Ten Hag suggesting that Raphael Varane still is a very important player, and it's just a case of internal competition, which is good, and two players that are playing well, and then you have a decision to make. I suppose the interesting part will be what happens if Maguire, let's say on Sunday, Maguire starts against Everton, which I think most people think he probably will, and he drops an absolute stinker and is terrible. Then does he start on in the week against Galatasaray? Or does Ten Hag then go, actually, okay, right, now's the right time, I'll bring Varane back in? Maybe that might be the case. But Erik Ten Hag certainly firmly denying any reports of a fallout or disagreements or anything like that with the player, certainly. But one thing I will say is I do think that there is something in the Bayern Munich interest, just because where it comes from. Florian Plettenberg is very, very strong. He very much won me over with his reporting with Harry Kane and that transfer in the summer, because I know I bring it up a lot, but obviously Flex was in the studio that day when they were doing the remote with Florian Plettenberg. I remember watching it at the time and watching the reaction after the fact as well. Like, he was very brazen. It's pretty bold. Even when Harry Kane is still in the country, like Harry Kane was still in the UK. He was still in London at that point. He hadn't even got on a flight, and there were still reports about, they don't know. Harry Kane, as of yesterday, was leaning more towards staying at Spurs and maybe not going and all that kind of stuff. And Florian Plettenberg went on Sky Sports News, the UK's Sky Sports News, and went, Harry Kane's going to play in the Super Cup tomorrow for Bayern Munich. And everyone was like, bullshit. Like, what? There hasn't even been a total agreement yet. What are you talking about? He played in the Super Cup. Lo and behold, 24 hours later, he's standing on the touchline in a Bayern Munich shirt and he comes on just after half time. And you go, right. So if he's saying stuff about Bayern Munich, which is, hey, there might be something there with Raphael Varane, that's when you have to say, well, maybe there might be something there. But the big stumbling block is wages. Raphael Varane's on quite extensive and big wages at Manchester United. But so that's when I do say there might be something there with that one. Whether or not he leaves in January, I don't know. That's another thing. But I think there is legitimate interest, certainly. How many likes are we currently at? We've got nearly 400 watching live. Haven't even got 100 likes yet. So if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well. Bottom right-hand corner, you know what to do. As I mentioned, we'll be live later on this evening with late night news as well. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't already, click those notification bells so you can be notified indeed when we go live. This was a good question. Next, which was about goals. How many goals we've scored this season? Not enough is the answer, because it's 13 goals in 12 league games. That is staggering. That should be, 13 goals should be, there are players in the Premier League this season that have got that. 13 goals. That's why I say, for all of the talk about defenders and how we are defensively and our goalkeeper this season, the real crux of the issue has been goal scoring. Our defence is pretty much on par, maybe not for the tippy top of the league, but on par with those around us, certainly. Our defence is near enough the same, and in some cases better. It's the goals. Our goal scoring is abysmal. So the question was said to Ten Hag, does that mean January, that's like a priority of yours? Are you looking for a striker, a goal scorer in January? And Ten Hag said, quote, I am confident we will get a point. Our players are able to score goals. They have shown it already. Rashi last season scored 30 goals. Højlund in the Champions League, he scored 5 goals. That is massive. Our players are capable. There will be a point when it comes. They have to step up, but our players have the ability to score goals. Now, this was the thing that I always found quite interesting, because for all of the talk about, like I said, our defensive injuries this season and players that haven't been available, midfield players that haven't been available, largely, apart from the beginning of the season with Rasmus Højlund, he missed those games, and I know Anthony was away and now he's back, but quite a few games we've been able to play a reasonably strong front three, haven't we? And we just can't score. we just genuinely can't score goals, and it's not for the want of trying either. That's what I will say. It would have concerned me a lot more if we were going through games and we weren't creating anything. I remember some of the times under like Ralf Rangnick, and even towards the end with Ollie, there were some games where we just didn't create anything, and you watched, halves of football went by and you'd go, their keeper hasn't had to make a save. Like, what is going on? And actually, in fairness, this season, there have been games where you go, the keeper hasn't had to make a save. But it's not as if we haven't had chances. We just miss sitters. I mean, proper sitters. I think, like, again, the game against Luton, I mentioned it this morning, but also after the game, that could have easily been 3 or 4-0, or maybe even 5. We had gilt-edged chances. Garnacho had 2, Højlund had 2, Rashford had 1 as well. I think McTominay had a chance in the game too. I mean, we had, proper, and then not even like half chances, gilt-edged chances. You look towards some of the bigger games this season that we've lost. I mean, even against Spurs away from home, that second game of the season, Bruno Fernandes, absolute sitter. You look at even the games in the Champions League when we did beat Copenhagen 1-0, that should have been like 3, maybe even 4 with the chances we had during that game too. So it's not even a case of we don't create chances. Our chance creations are not too bad. It's just a case of scoring them. I mean, it's all well and good that Ten Hag says in the press conference, Rashford last season got 30 goals, but this season he's got 1. It's not about last season. I mean, and you can't pick and choose that. Sometimes Ten Hag will say, well, it's not about last time. We have to move on and focus on what's in front of us. We can only improve on what we're doing right now. You can't then go, yeah, but Rashford scored 30 goals last season, so that's good. No, he needs to be scoring now. He needs to, and you do look at some of these games, and this is why it's frustrating when people, they say the 20-minute FC, and it's true, but in that 20 minutes, we will usually have at least 1 or 2 chances where we should score and we don't. And then it allows the opposition team to get back in the game. So that absolutely has to be rectified. Absolutely. And it does kind of concern me a little bit, because I do look at those attacking options, and in the way that earlier this year and last season with Rashford, when you just watched him and you just felt like anything he did, you felt like he was going to score. Every single time he picked up the ball and he ran towards goal, you went, he's going to score. Like when he was really in that rich vein of form, you just felt like he couldn't do anything but score goals. You see the opposite of that with him now. When he picks up the ball, I speak for myself, I have zero faith that he's going to beat the man or get a shot on target or do whatever. Zero faith at all. To the point that if he does, it's like, oh, I can't believe that happened. And I do look at that front line and I just go, where are those goals coming from? Højlund still needs more, chances put to him. He needs more service, but also he needs support around him. And if we were going to do some business in January, which again, I really say I think people need to temper their expectations with that, and we'll get on to FFP shortly. But I think that that would be something that they should look at. But when we say a striker, we don't mean like a Weghorst-ish. we're gonna get a striker. How many goals is he gonna score? Well, in the Prem, none. But he'll get like 1 in the Europa League and 1 in the Carabao Cup. The defensive striker. But you know what? I'm not going to slander Weghorst too much, because as I said before, he came in when we needed a body. And we needed just to have someone up front, and Martial couldn't do it, and I will be grateful for that. It's just that signing is just that is Man United Glazonomics in a nutshell, isn't it? That we've got no cash, we're financially fair play, screwed because we can't sell any players, and a lot of our players are on big contracts, and we can't get rid of them, so we had to get Wout Weghorst in. And a credit to Erik ten Hag is he made it work that last season. He did. He finished third. He got to an FA Cup final and he won a trophy. Again, credit to him, certainly, for that, because I don't know how you can make that work. But somehow, some way, he did. I don't know. It's crazy. But Ten Hag is saying that the players, he has faith, the players will score. Next question was about his touchline ban. Of course, a reminder, Erik ten Hag will not be on the touchline this weekend. He's picked up 3 yellow cards, the last of which were in the game against Luton at Old Trafford just before the international break. And Ten Hag said, let's say this, it is a ban. You are not always agreeing with the referee. Many decisions were against us. Still, I have to accept it. He pointed out how we were like 18th. I thought we were 20th, but 18th in the league in terms of decisions against us this season. He said, I have to accept it though. It is a ban. He says, look at it this way. It's an advantage. I have a better overview. I can see more of the pitch. Remember when Sam Allardyce used to do that a lot? When he was the Bolton manager, he used to never be on the touchline. He used to always be up in the stands, didn't he? There with his little microphone, looking like Janet Jackson or whatever, or the little telephone. I used to like that. They used to have a phone there with a cord on. You know, I'm showing their age, but telephone with a cord, pick it up, talk to the manager at the dugout, blah, 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 blah. They go and do it or whatever. So maybe he has a better overview. I don't know. But look, I don't blame him necessarily because, I mean, we as fans get frustrated. It must be infuriating. Some of the refereeing decisions that have been against us, you know, this season, or some of the VAR decisions we've had against us this season or whatever, it must just be infuriating. And then when you see it, for me, it's one thing, this is what really gets me angry. It's one thing to see it happen in the game and us to get, this is a penalty or this is a red card or this is a disallowed goal, this is an offside, and you go, okay, whatever. But the thing that really gets me is when you see the game later on in the day, the next day, next weekend, and it will come, when you see the exact same situation or a situation very, very similar and you see the complete opposite happen, that's the infuriating thing because there's no consistency. I mean, I'm almost shocked that you've had 2 instances this season of a ball being out of play and in one situation, and they look exactly the same. If anything, ours looks more in. Ours is, no, that was out of play. That was out of play, disallow the goal. Newcastle, no, that was in. That was in. And the wildest thing about that is, like, for all of the talk, you know, and for all the frustration that United fans had, they spent ages focusing on. You had Gary Neville on. I can't remember which game it was. You know, I think it was the Chelsea Spurs game before kickoff. He had a ball literally by the touchline. Going, see, this is, you know, the physics and the ball is a sphere and all this kind of stuff. I was going, where's the science? Where was the science for us? For that game against Brighton, when that ball was ruled out, they just went, it's out, and we just had to go, oh, okay, that's it. No discussion. No, like, it's out. It looks out. See? And then they've got the rule of, well, if we can't say definitively that it's out, we have to say basically that it's in. And you could not say that ball was definitively out. You couldn't. And again, the precedent was set from the World Cup. I cannot wrap my head around that one as well. Fulham, subjective offside as well. Or games against, we've had goals ruled out for offside because the player's been in front of the goalkeeper, even though for City, that one was ruled not to be offside as well. Like, it's nuts. It's absolutely crazy. And a couple of months ago, you can probably find the shows. A couple of months ago, I really wasn't for getting rid of VAR because I was still of the mindset that there are still really bad decisions that they get right, you know, that they eventually overturn and get right. But at this point, it feels like they're making mistakes more often with technology, and I'd rather just have the excuse of, well, human error, it is what it is. Because human error, with the technology there available to help them, and they still mess it up consistently, I just cannot wrap my head around that. Genuinely, I cannot wrap my head around it. I'd rather it just be, well, human error is what it is. I'd rather it just be a case of, we'll get automated or semi-automated offsides where it's done really, really quickly, so that one can get fixed. But anything else that's subjective, screw it. We're just not even going to bother at this point, realistically. You can't celebrate a goal anymore because you've got 10 million checks going on as well, which is nonsense. When you do have games where it's not around, like in the Carabao Cup, I know we lost Newcastle, but nobody missed it. Nobody missed VR not being available in that game at all. So I'd just be a case of semi-automated offsides because it gets done quickly and it's largely out of the hand of the referees. And then just anything else, if the referee gets it wrong, he gets it wrong. And then we move on. Because it's also the timing, isn't it? Like people point out, if it's taking 3 or 4 minutes to figure out a decision, then how clear and obvious is it? Clearly not. You know, so I don't get this. And make no mistake, look, we're going into another Premier League weekend. There's going to be some questionable decision this weekend again with VAR. Absolutely. I mean, when you look at that Spurs-Chelsea game the other week, I know there was a lot going on in that game, but the amount of VAR stuff that went on just in the first half alone, how many disallowed goals were there? And how many VAR checks for red cards that weren't given as well? That was insane, wasn't it? I mean, it was absolutely nuts. So I'm at this point, get rid of it, streamline the process, and just move it on. Because and this is me as a fan as well, as someone that played football, to a decent level as well growing up. At this point, I don't even know the rules anymore. Genuinely, the rules change all the time, and there's not a lot of coverage about the rules changing. And so stuff gets ruled off for stuff that you don't actually know that much about. I mean, in the last 5 years alone, how many times the handball rule changed? I genuinely don't know what's handball anymore. At one point, it was just if it touches your hand. Then there was the whole, remember ball to hand? That was a phrase for a while, wasn't it? That's ball to hand. That's not handball. That's ball to hand. They don't say that anymore. Now it's a case of if your arm's away. Then at one point, there was the sleeve line. Is it above or below the sleeve line? We don't know about that. And then even though sometimes the hand is away, it's still not given. Why? I don't know. Because you don't hear from the referees, apart from when Howard Webb does his propaganda show of Michael Owen, which people criticize for saying you're just justifying shit decisions. And Michael Owen got really offended by that. But it was well, you're not explaining or apologizing for anything. You just go, this is why we did it. Look how terrible we are. What was that about? So, I don't know. Honestly, at this point anymore, I don't know. But Erik ten Hag is not going to be on the touchline at the weekend. So there you go. Ten Hag was asked, so is it difficult, obviously, to not show your frustrations, but should the officials be more understanding? And Ten Hag said, well, you have to behave yourself even if they make mistakes. And then finally, a little bit when it came to financial fair play, he was asked about what he made of Everton's FFP situation. Ten Hag said, well, I can't tell. I don't know the details behind it, but I can imagine Everton fans are very frustrated. And then he was asked about Manchester United and FFP, saying, what's the FFP picture like with United and how does that impact the January transfer window? And Ten Hag said, well, it's not so much on this January because it's been on every window. He said it was impacting the previous window and the window before that. There's always a limit to what you can do and how much business you can do. It limits you in what you can do. And it's quite funny because I've mentioned FFP a few times in relation to Man United. And I had a discussion with someone in the comments, I forget who it was, a few days ago. And they said, you keep bringing up FFP. It's almost like you want... This was very strange. It's almost like you want a point deduction so Man United fans can feel sorry for themselves, which I thought, I don't recall saying that. My point was with FFP with United isn't really to do with the fine that we've got, because that was about changes in UEFA rules and COVID stuff. That wasn't... So my point wasn't really with that, with the fine. My bigger point is there have definitely been windows recently where we have been impacted by FFP, and we've still managed to spend a lot of money, so don't get mistaken on that. We've still spent cash, but really the winter window is the biggest example of this last season, and to an extent towards the end of the summer transfer window too. But you look at our winter window, we were linked extensively with Cody Gakpo, and if we had the money, we'd have got him. And we just didn't have the money. We didn't have the money to do that deal. We were linked with João Felix. I think if we'd had the money, maybe not to do that loan, because I still lean into that loan. The price involved that loan, was it over 23, 24 million for a loan deal? It's insane. That did nothing for Chelsea in the end. I don't think that was a good deal for United to do anyway. But had we had the money, we'd have been involved in those discussions. Instead, we got Wout Weghorst because Anthony Martial kept getting injured, and we got Marcel Sabitzer, who realistically we weren't in for until Christian Eriksen got hurt right at the end of the month. That's the best we could do. The absolute best we could do financially. That's insane. That is insane. And come this past summer as well, we did spend money on players, but even the Sofian Amrabat deal, which you can argue maybe we kind of got a bit fortunate with, but I think the intentions early on would have been to buy him, but it came to the point when we don't have the money. We cannot buy Sofian Amrabat in the summer. We couldn't do it. So we had to wait and wait. The player had to go on strike, and then we had to get him on loan, with a possible a situation where we could buy him. And you could argue maybe, we've kind of got away with one. Had we signed him, we'd be like, oh, maybe that's not the best signing permanently. But my point is that could have been a situation if we had the cash, right, with Ryan Gravenberch becoming available, we'd have gone for him. And there's a pre-existing relationship there between the manager and the player. And he might have chosen Manchester United, and that would have been a massive, help for our midfield issues this season. So you're looking at players there that we are missing out on because we can't afford to go in for them because we're hurt from an FFP point of view. So that's why I bring it up, because I think like this January, unless there's a big outgoing, probably not going to do that much. And the FFP also hurts us because we can't sell players. Our selling process is shit. It's rubbish. But the players are on massive contracts, which hurt us from an FFP point of view, and we can't sell anyone because they're on big contracts. So we don't really make any money either. I mean, we were rejoicing that we managed to sell Anthony Elanga. Oh, academy project, academy person, pure profit. How much is that? 15 million, was it? That's a big sale for us. Well, oh, wow. What a lot of money that is. That's nothing to other clubs. So FFP is a real thing for United, certainly. Again, not so much for the fines, but more for, I think, expectations. And even so, we still, our buying and recruitment process is still just awful. Absolutely awful. But there you go, guys. By the way, 1 like away from 100. So if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. Road to 157k, less than 100 subscribers to go. So if you haven't already, subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. As for what's on tap for today, tomorrow, and the rest of the weekend, as I mentioned, it will be live later on this evening, around 10:45-ish for late night news. We'll have, obviously, the embargoed part of the press conference, as well as any other news stories that break later on this evening. Tomorrow we'll have the preview, match preview. It's going to be myself and DJ breaking down the game on Sunday at Goodison Park. And then, of course, Sunday is match day itself. So we'll have a road trip. We'll have the match view from inside UVHQ as always. We'll have the full-time view where you can call in and have your say if you're a member. It's right there. It's right. Look at that perfect time. I didn't even plan that. So you can call in and have your say. Then we'll have all of the fan views and the match ratings as well. Followed by Monday, which will be Match Day Reloaded. I'll be live at 9 o'clock to review and reflect on what we saw the prior day. We'll have tactical views, full view as well. We've got a jam-packed couple days here at United View. So if you subscribe, you won't miss a single thing. Anyway, guys, have a great Friday afternoon, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Peace.